All right. Good morning, everyone. I am so excited to be with you again as we begin to wind down this 21-22 school year. I am so excited. I'm counting down also. So today we're going to talk about mastering change in your life. And we know that there's been a lot of change over the last couple of years, and things will continue to change. As a matter of fact, things change every single day. You know, there's an old saying that you can never put your foot into the same stream or the same ocean twice because it's constantly changing. It's never the same. So today we're going to talk about change in your life. Do you see this notice, or am I the only one seeing this? Oh, something's going on here. I don't want that. And let me see if I can go back to where I was.
Are you getting a recording notice? I'm recording to the cloud. Is that what?
It's trying to redirect me somewhere.
Okay, I can stop the recording.
No, it's not you. Let me figure out
Okay.
what's, yes, trying to redirect me somewhere else. I'm not used to seeing that. And it's not letting me return to the previous page. Well, that's new and different. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yeah, I can see the slide that says
Okay,
mastering change.
then we're good. I don't know where that warning came from, but we will ignore it and move forward. So you guys know I'm still with EAP, so I don't need to go through that. So today, what we're talking about is the impact of change that it has on your life. And how you deal with change is all about how you choose to respond to it. So we'll talk about what change really means and how we can get through difficult changes in our lives as quickly as possible. So first of all, let's talk about the impact of change. Sometimes we choose to make changes in our lives. You can choose to move to a new residence. You can choose to buy a new car. You choose to change your clothes every day. So there are some things that we choose to change. And then there are some changes that happen to us. The pandemic is an example of a huge change that happened to us. We have no control over the pandemic, so we have to adapt to make it work for us. We don't get to choose it. So how we manage change speaks to our ability to stay mentally, emotionally, and physically grounded. If you fight against change, if you try to push back the wind, if you try to stop the waves, that usually does not turn out very well. But those who've learned how to accept change and then figure out what am I in control of, generally have a better response when it comes to how change impacts us. Okay, so we'll share some highlights with you today. Now, why is it so difficult? If we know that change is inevitable, we know that change happens every day, we know that no 2 days are the same, why is it so hard for us to accept change? Because basically, it's the unknown. We know what we're dealing with right now today. We don't know what tomorrow holds. We don't know what will happen if I go left instead of right. And every day we're faced with decisions and forks in the road, and we have to decide which road am I going to take? Which option am I going to implement? And we don't know the outcome. So basically, change disrupts our sense of normal. And I know through this pandemic, many people are saying, when are we going to return to normal? Guess what? We will never go back to things exactly as they were in March of 2020. We will never go back to that point in time. It has passed. You are a different person. You have changed. Your family has changed. Your job has changed. Families coming to school have changed. The environment has changed. The government has changed. The world has changed. And we will never go back to normal as you knew it. So there's something called your new normal. Your new normal may include mask for a time being. It may include limiting how you socialize with people and physically distancing yourself. This is your new normal. Okay. So you create what you feel is normal for you. Change always makes us feel that we're not in control and we don't know what's happening. So that makes us feel unsafe and it makes us worry. So it says that this is your brain on change. Okay. So here's what happens when we're dealing with change. We have things going on internally. I like to say that when we're in the change, now this is more of a mountain, but I like to talk about the iceberg because what you see above the surface with an iceberg is just the tip. What you don't see is that huge mass of ice that's under the water. So what you see many times with changes in your life is just the tip. You don't see all the attitudes and perceptions and personalities and conflicts and values and everything else that's underwater that has to do with that change. So change is not a destination. Change is not an event. Change is a process. And as we go through this process, we learn and we grow. And you've got to go through it in order to grow through it. So change is not something that happens to you. It's something that happens within you. It happens through you, not just to you, okay? So let's look at some strategies when we're facing change. You can look at it a couple of ways. You can see yourself as a participant in the change, and that's when you have a positive attitude about the change. You can see yourself as a spectator just watching something happen, and you're neutral, come see, come saw. Or you can see yourself as a critic, criticizing and complaining about the change. Then you will have a very negative attitude. So think about some things that have gone on in your life. Where did you see yourself? Think about a major change that you went through, whether it was a divorce, your children moving out of the house, finishing your degree, running a marathon, whatever. You went through a change in life. Were you a player who was actively involved in figuring out what to do with this change? Were you a spectator just watching life go by? Or were you criticizing and complaining and fighting against it? And that usually creates a negative outcome. So while we're on this page, let's write this down. And I know I've done it in some workshops before, but I don't know what you've gone through before. So here's an equation for you. E plus R equals O. E plus R equals O. The E stands for event, the R stands for response, and the O stands for outcome. So which of these do you have control over? Do you control the event? Do you control your response? Do you control the outcome? Well, here's what I'd like for you to think about. The event happens to us all. The pandemic is an event. The weather is an event. Traffic is an event. Changing daylight savings time is an event. The event happens to us all. But how you choose to respond to that event determines whether you have a positive or a more negative outcome. So if people recognize that the event happens and we try to stay positive about the event in how we respond. So the event is neutral. It impacts everyone. How you choose to respond is whether you are a player or a critic. So if you respond in a positive way, this too shall pass, we'll get through this, what are my options? Then you will generally have a more positive outcome. But if you try to fight it and complain and you're angry and resentful, you're going to generally have a more negative outcome. Now, there are some phases that we go through, but what's interesting about the phases we go through with change are the exact same phases we go through with grief, because change is a form of grief. You feel that you're losing something and you don't know what the future holds. In grief, we are losing something and we don't know what the future holds. So let's talk about these stages and how they feel. I love this slide. So this slide takes us through the process of change. Now, the first, you're in your current state, life is going along, la, 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 everything is fine. Remember March, spring break of 2020? We were all on spring break, and then we got the email, the email that said, oh, take a couple more weeks, spend some more time with your family, make sure you got food, make sure you have toilet paper, and this thing will blow over and we'll all be back to work very quickly. Well, that was 2 years ago. It hasn't blown over. So you had your current state. And then the first stage of change, as in grief, is denial. It's that sense that we're losing something. So let's talk about it from grief. Let's say that you get that phone call that there's been a tragic accident. Your first stage is shock and denial. Oh no, I just saw him yesterday. Oh my gosh, how could this have happened? We're in denial that it really is true. I need to wait and see it on the news. I need to talk to someone else. I've got to verify this. I'm not just going to take your word for it. That's the shock and the denial. Once we've verified it, then we go into the second stage, which is called resistance. Resistance is also the angry phase, where now we get angry. We're upset with the person. Well, why was he driving late at night? We're upset with ourselves. I should have been there with him. We're upset and angry at God. Why did you allow this to happen? We're resisting. We're trying to push back. They're not going to really do that. So that's the second phase that we go through. So first is the shock and denial, then the resistance and the angry phase. Now, I like this because we used to show this diagram in 4 boxes, a quadrant, and you went down and came back up in a U shape, but now it's a V. And I like this V because when you get down to the base of that V, you're in the valley. V stands for valley. And at the end, you'll see that V also stands for victorious. So when you're in the valley, here's the analogy. If you come down a mountain and you're now between 2 mountains, that's the valley, which means you now have to go up another mountain. If you came down a mountain and you hit a plateau or a plain, that's flat. But when you hit a valley, that means you came down one side and you're going to go up the other side. So when you're in your valley, be encouraged because that means that you're going up. There's no way to go but up. You know, there's a saying that I like. It says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. So when you're in that valley, you want to be confident because you know you're going up. So now as we start, we've hit our lowest point, and now we start what's called the exploration phase. That's when you say, okay, we need to make arrangements. Who do we need to call? You know, who's going to handle what? How are we going to get beyond this? Then you move into the acceptance phase where you've now had the ceremony, the memorial, the funeral. You accepted that person is gone. That doesn't mean you don't miss them, but you've accepted the truth of the situation. And now you've taken action and you're in a new desired state until a new change comes along. So in the grief process, we've probably seen these stages before, but may not have named them. Some people can go through their V very quickly. They've taught themselves how to get through it quickly and move on. Some people get stuck, and you get stuck in denial or you get stuck in anger. Stuck in denial are those folks who still say Elvis is alive. They're stuck in denial. Stuck in anger is when people refuse to move forward because they're angry and they want someone to apologize, and they're holding all of these emotions, and the only person they're hurting is themselves. So you want to get through this. Someone's mic is open. Can you please mute yourselves? You want to learn how to get through this phase as quickly as possible. So what does that look like in your life? Well, your spouse says they want a divorce. Shock and denial. Oh my gosh, I didn't see this coming. What's wrong? How can we work through this? Then you get angry. How dare you leave me? Then we get to our lowest point and we start to figure out, okay, what do I need to do differently? I need to get my own bank account. I need to find me a new place to live. I need to see an attorney. You start to work through it. You accept the situation. You go through the process of the divorce and you end up in a new desired state. It's the same process over and over again. So again, in that denial phase, we want to be careful because so many times we can beat ourselves up when we're denying the reality of the situation. They'll never change. They'll never close this school. They'll never change this. They can't do that. Who do they think they are?
Darlene,
Things happen. Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. For some reason, I'm not able to mute on my end, but if Wheeler Joe could please mute, a lot of background noise is coming in from that screen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I could hear it, but
They said they can hear a lot of noise on our end.
Yeah, can you please mute?
Wonderful. All right. So in the denial phase is when we rationalize or we try to ignore things. The resistant phase, as we talked about, that's the anger, the gossiping, unable to control our behaviors. We're avoiding conversations, all the side comments going on at work, the secret meetings. That's that resistance phase. But exploration is wonderful. So when you're going through change and you get to exploration, that means you're now ready to look at your options. Here's another word for you. Y-A-H-O-O, Yahoo. Y-A-H-O-O, which means you always have other options. That's the exploration phase. What are my options? What can I do differently? What did I learn from this that I'm going to do differently? You always have options. Many times you don't see your options because we're too close. We can't see the forest because the tree is right in front of us. That's why we need a support system. Get excited when you're in the exploration phase. Brainstorm. Think outside of the box. Look at every opportunity and figure out what's the best one for me. And then you select something, commit to something. Integrate that change and say, I'm committed to accomplishing this. I am excited about what lies ahead of me. You're looking toward the future, not toward your past. But you want to make sure you have a balanced and realistic and optimistic view of life. There is more that you can do than you realize. You are capable of more than you realize. You can do more than you realize. When you're pushed, I just made me a cup of hot tea. And just like a tea bag, we sometimes do our best work when we're in hot water. Just like a diamond, it becomes that diamond from a lump of coal to a diamond under pressure. So sometimes we need these changes in these events in our lives. So going back to control, the reason why change is so difficult is because we don't feel in control. But think about this. What do you control? In this entire universe, what do you control? Do you control other people? Do you control the government? Do you control traffic? Do you control your spouse? Do you control your co-workers, your students, their parents? What do you control? Well, the only thing you control in this entire universe is you. You control your thoughts, your actions, your beliefs, your attitudes. You control your reactions. You control what you do, what you don't do. You control your emotions. You control you. We influence other people through rewards and consequence management, but we don't control them. And then there are things like gravity and electricity and the wind that we don't control at all. Usually things from nature, we as humans have no control over. So again, if you concentrate on what you can control within whatever's changing, what do you control? You control you. So instead of letting your mind go to worst case scenario, pull it back and control your options of what's in front of you right now. So when you're in the midst of change, you want to be proactive. Accept the situation as quickly as possible, and then take ownership for your role and say, okay, what do I need to do? What am I in control over? I can't control other people, but I can control this. I can't control traffic, but I can choose to turn out of traffic and take another route, take another street. You decide what you have control over. And then what is the language that you're saying to yourself when you're in the midst of a change? Are you beating yourself up and reacting and being angry and mad? I can't do anything about this. It's out of my hands. That's just the way it is. Oh my gosh, he gets on my nerves. If only I had. That's reactive language. Proactive is this too shall pass. I'll choose a different route. I can control me. I will get through this. I am determined to make this work. So, how are you speaking to yourself? Now, we all have limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are those things that have held us back for years. And the question is, what limiting beliefs are holding you back? If you tell yourself that you can't do something, you are absolutely right. You can't and you won't. But if you tell yourself, I can, then give it your best shot and you'll be amazed at what happens. So instead of saying words like can't and I'll try, say words like I got this, I will, I am, I will make it through. Those are the words that lift us up. So how do you empower yourself? First of all, again, take responsibility for you, not for anyone else. Take responsibility for you. Again, look at what do you have control over. Take action. You have to do something and then look for the teachable moments. Everything that happens to us in life, we either win or no, you don't lose. You win or you learn. As long as you've learned something from the event, you have not lost anything. So as you're going through changes in life, ask yourself, what am I to learn from this? What lesson am I supposed to take away from this? First marriage didn't work out the way you thought it would. What did you learn that you're going to do differently in your next relationship? You went up for that principalship and didn't get it. What did you learn that you're going to do differently in your next set of interviews? So we want to always be learning in life. Every day you wake up, you're given a new opportunity to learn something new. So how do we build up our resistance to change? The ability to adapt, to pivot very quickly, because you're going to always have changes in life. What we've learned is that you have to be more creative. Think outside of the box. Don't look at it as a negative, look at it as a challenge. I got this. Oh, I get to test my skills today. I got an opportunity to work on me today. Be eager to learn something new and look at it as a positive. We have to pivot, we have to adapt. Sometimes you have to call an audible. Sometimes you got to throw a Hail Mary. So you've got to be willing to do whatever is necessary so that you can manage you through the change, and you want to trust the process. Remember, change is not a destination. So it helps if you can begin with the end in mind. When you can begin with what you want to happen out of this, when you have a vision of what you're hoping will come out of this, it may not end up exactly there, but you'll be a lot closer. Did you know that most airplanes are off course almost the entire flight? They're wavering all over the place, but they've put in their destination, and eventually that plane will hit its target destination, even though it's off along the way and there are some ups and downs and some turbulence. That's how you want to look at whatever change you're going through. Slip into the gap. Deepak Chopra taught us that there's a gap between our action and reaction, between the stimulus and the response. Do you take time to slip into that gap, to give yourself time to process information? You know, changes are there to help us develop and grow. And people go through that V at their own speed. So you want to incorporate tips and techniques to help you get through your V as quickly as possible. And don't be afraid of the future. The future you're living today is a future you may have worried about 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. Why are you wasting time today worrying about tomorrow? The past is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. All we have is today, and today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. So live in today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't trade today for what might happen tomorrow. And don't dwell on yesterday, because we cannot change not one iota of what happened yesterday or yesteryear. Learn from it and move on. Okay, I have about 3 minutes. I rushed through this today, but are there any questions or comments from anyone out there on how we can manage the changes that we have in our lives? So we can open it up or you can put it in the chat, whichever works best for you, Miss Lisa. How would you like to handle that?
Either way, I'm watching the chat. So if people want to put it in or they want to ask questions, either way is fine.